Oh my God. Actually, I'm pretty disappointed right now. It's not the truth. Goobie and Doobie, I was an MIT educated neurosurgeon. Now I'm unemployed and alone in the mountains. How did I get here?
So I used to be a neurosurgeon. Went to college at MIT and did 4 years of medical school and 6 years of neurosurgery training. And I was a neurosurgeon for almost 10 years after all of that. So that's 20 years of my life. And I quit. I quit last year and nobody understood why I quit.
Honestly, I'm not shocked by this, but I think a lot of people are, because the public perception of what neurosurgery is and what a neurosurgeon's lifestyle might be is very much disconnected from the reality.
I became a doctor to help people. And I remember at the beginning of medical school when I was just starting, there was a ceremony and we all took a Hippocratic oath. I remember there was one of the older faculty docs, and he said that your job as doctors is to relieve suffering. It's not to do a surgery or give a pill. It's to relieve suffering. That might be from doing a surgery or a pill, but it might be just listening, acknowledging what someone's going through. That stuck with me all through medical school.
Just to add to that, there is a bit of misunderstanding of what the Hippocratic Oath actually is. It was misconstrued by I think a physician or a surgeon in the 1800s, and it kind of stuck ever since. Hippocrates didn't actually say first do no harm, but that's something we're covering in a future video on this channel. But I like what he's saying here. It's not just to help people, it's to relieve suffering, which can be pharmacologic, it can be procedural, it can be just listening to them.
How I became a neurosurgeon is well, I've always been interested in how the brain works, how consciousness works, how our brain and body is able to perceive this mountainside. We have so many choices in life. Is there such thing as a good life? And if so, how do you live that? Those are all questions that I was curious about.
Hell yeah, and if you also wonder about those things, that's largely the reason why I chose neuroscience as my major when I was at UCLA for college. And I was toying around with a philosophy minor, didn't end up pursuing that. But neuroscience is just so cool. And then, you know, neurosurgery is obviously a very different thing, but
that led me to be curious about the brain. And at that time at my medical school, there were some researchers working on connecting brains to computers through a brain-machine interface. So this was like science fiction, creating a robotic arm or leg that's controlled by a person's thoughts. That was really interesting to me, and there were people working on that. And so I wanted to go into neurosurgery and learn about that and do research on it, and maybe one day do a surgery like a Luke Skywalker replacing his arm kind of surgery. So I went into neurosurgery training. I got in, and I spent 6 years learning how to do brain surgery. And most people don't know that neurosurgeons spend half their time also learning how to do spine surgery.
Nowadays, neurosurgery residency is 7 years, but I guess when he was doing it, there were some programs that were doing 6.
And I did some research working on rats and electrodes, and putting electrodes in their brain. But as I did more research into the problem, I found that this dream of being able to give people robotic arms or legs, I don't think will ever happen. And that's because the brain knows that these small electrodes that listen to the brain are not part of the body. So it rejects it.
This reminds me of something different, but still somewhat similar, which is targeted muscle reinnervation, which is when I was training in plastic surgery, this was very much cutting edge, and it's not going to the brain, but if someone has an amputation in their arm, let's say, and you attach a prosthetic, you can actually route some electrodes to the nerve endings here in your arm, not in the brain, and then you can actually control the prosthetic. So Dr. Ian Valerio, I think it was, at Ohio State University, he was one of the people who's helping pioneer this, and really smart guy, and great to operate with.
Builds up a wall of scar, and then the electrodes, they can't hear the neurons, the little tiny cells in the brain that send the signals. The goal that I wanted to accomplish, which was to become a neurosurgeon who specializes and does research on brain-machine interface work, I thought that would not work out in the end because of those limitations.
That sounds largely, I mean, you see this in other areas of surgery too. Like in plastic surgery, there's hand transplants, face transplants, right? It's less about the actual surgical technique being the limiting factor, and it's much more about immunomodulation because of the host rejecting these foreign bodies or grafted tissues.
And after putting in 4 years plus, at that time, 5 years of my life, that's 9 years of from 20 to 29 years old. That's like the prime of my youth. I had invested it in doing medical school and learning how to do brain and spine surgery. At the age of 29, I realized that where I wanted to go, I would never be able to make it. It's just not possible.
That's unfortunately the reality for those entering medicine, right? I started med school at 21, and if I stuck with plastic surgery, I would have finished residency at, I think, 31 or 32. And he probably was finishing neurosurgery around similar time. And I mean, those are your 20s right there, man.
And after putting 9 years of my youth into that job, I didn't want to throw that away. So in my last year of residency, I learned how to do spine surgery, because that's what most neurosurgeons do. It's the most common thing. It's what a regular neurosurgery job is.
And you can do spine surgery both from neurosurgery residency or from orthopedic surgery residency. And for those who've never seen spine surgery, it is not what you think it is. And we talk about that a lot more in other videos on this channel and also on Med School Insiders, but definitely not as, it's just probably not what you think.
Is fixing people's worn out necks and backs. And I had good teachers to do that, and graduated, and I got my first job, and yeah, I knew that something was not right. You know, I had good partners, I had good hospitals that I worked at, but something was not right. I was very unhappy. And on the surface, it didn't make sense. I was getting paid very well.
Neurosurgeons are the highest paid doctors. They do work the hardest though. And it's also considered probably the most prestigious because of the level of recognition you get, not just within medicine, but also outside of medicine.
It was a very well-respected job. I had good colleagues, I had good support, but I was the most unhappy that I've ever been. And I couldn't really figure it out for a long time. I had gotten married just before getting the new job, and that's the best decision I've ever made. My wife is so understanding and supportive. Really, I didn't know what was the problem, but now I know what it is. Going back to medical school, when I took that oath and I had that older professor say that your job is to relieve suffering, that's what I understood of what it means to be a good doctor. And I had learned all these fancy spine surgery techniques to do through tiny cuts. It's called minimally invasive spine surgery. It's the latest technology. We use navigation like a GPS inside the operating room.
And minimally invasive surgery is getting applied here to spine surgery, also to other areas of surgery. You saw it, I think, first coming out in general surgery, like abdominal stuff, where you did laparoscopic, with these little portholes in the abdominal wall. But you tend to have better outcomes because you're causing less trauma to the body when you're doing these procedures.
I helped a lot of people out, but there were way more people that I couldn't help. And that's because surgery, like if someone's got what's called degenerative spine, that means their spine degenerated, it wore out. Could be a bulging disc pinching a nerve, or a disc is just worn out and bones are rubbing on each other, or there's a loose joint and the joint is banging on nerves causing pain. I can do surgery to cut out like a bulging disc to remove something and make more room for a nerve, or I could do a surgery where I put titanium screws and rods into the spine and lock it down and remove motion. It's all removing things. The only thing that was adding things was putting in a little electrode to block pain signals if there was nothing else you could do.
I was considering neurosurgery, plastic surgery, and orthopedic surgery when I was in medical school. And neurosurgery was the most different from what I was expecting. And I talked more about that in the why I did into neurosurgery video right up here. But one of the things that bothered me the most, it was two things. Number one, the crude nature, but number two was the outcomes. Because if you think who actually needs brain or spine surgery, people who are essentially running out of options. And I still remember this minor, again, I told the story more that why I didn't, but essentially this minor had this really sad outcome. And it just ruined my mood for the rest of the day. And it hit me that I could not go into a job like this that was gonna have these negative outcomes because I just didn't have the stomach for it. It would weigh on me. That emotional burden would weigh on me, seeing a minor, a child, suffering, and the parents getting hopeful, and like it just pulled at my heartstrings. And I was so like, I remember being so devastated that this is the reality for this family.
Those were the tools I had. I learned to use them really well. But what I realized later on is that those aren't fixing the problem. There's so many people with back problems, neck pain, back pain, nerve pain down their arms and legs. Surgery might make them better for a little bit, but it didn't address what caused that disc to wear out, or the disc to bulge, or the joint to get loose.
You're gonna see a lot of doctors, if they have back issues, they will not jump to surgery, spine surgery. They understand how bad the outcomes are, how it's a Band-Aid solution, and you're gonna see them do a lot more exercise and physical therapy and various other forms of addressing the root problem rather than jumping to surgery. But unfortunately, a lot of the Western, or at least American mindset and culture in medicine and for whatever health problems has shifted to the point where it's like, give me the magic pill, give me the magic procedure, fix my problem. You're the doctor. We're in the 21st century. We got these cutting edge technologies, and no one wants to do the hard work of actually doing the exercise, doing the stretching, doing the PT, whatever.
Those surgeries, they don't address that. So what I was doing was I was doing the surgeries that I learned how to do. I was trying to help people. These surgeries, they weren't fixing the problem. They would help some people feel better. Some people would feel the same. Some people would be worse. A lot of people I saw in clinic, I had to tell them that, oh, surgery is not going to help you.
This is going to happen in all aspects of medicine. Some specialties worse than others. Neurosurgery, one of the worst in terms of the outcomes and your ability to actually help patients. Or rather, I shouldn't say ability to help patients, but ability to get patients to where they want to be and to have good, positive outcomes.
A physician assistant that I worked with, he made a good analogy that the surgeries we're doing, it's like you have a house and the roof, the top of your house has a leak somewhere, and rain water is coming down into the house and it's ruining the drywall. The surgeries that I could do were like going into that house, tearing down that drywall, ripping out the moldy insulation, putting in brand new insulation and rebuilding the wall, but not fixing the leak in the roof. That's what I was doing.
Not addressing the root cause being largely these lifestyle issues, these movement issues, these, depending on the pathology, a lot of different things. Surgery is oftentimes, in neurosurgery, a Band-Aid solution is what he's pointing out.
I could do a perfect surgery and some people would get better, some people would get worse, even though I did the exact same perfect surgery. And some people would get better before I could operate on them. Even with gigantic bulging discs, they would get better. If I scheduled the surgery a month out, sometimes they would call me a week before surgery and say, oh, hey doc, my nerve pain's gone. Do I still need to do surgery? Yeah, I got a big disc in there, a big bulging disc, right? And that was very confusing to me. I had learned some of that in residency, but actually being out there and practicing and seeing what happens to people, this isn't quite what I thought it was. I thought that if I do a perfect surgery, people are gonna get better. And it wasn't always the case.
Again, especially in neurosurgery, that's definitely not the case. And it's a big thing that pushed me away from neurosurgery when I was making my decision back in medical school. The outcomes can weigh on you if you're highly invested in the patient's well-being and outcomes, and some people can manage that better than others.
I felt that, wait, there's something missing here. My surgeries they don't seem to be addressing what's causing people's health problems in their spine. I mean, they sort of do, but not in the way that I thought. Not in the way that I thought when I was training. And so over 9 years, I did everything I could try to figure out, how do people actually get better and how do they get worse? But I just started asking patients like everything I could think of. What do you normally do? What's your job? What do you eat? What do you drink? Do you smoke? How's your family? Are you stressed out? Do you sleep well? And what I found was patients that did certain things would get better And patients who wouldn't do those things would get worse. And those things that I saw were the following. People that healed, they were having a diet. Well, diet seemed to be the most important. The food that people ate and the liquids they drank.
Pro-inflammatory versus anti-inflammatory?
The ones that would heal up, they had a low salt diet. It wasn't really salty. And most of them ate mostly plant-based foods, like vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans. People that got better were having a mostly plant-based diet. They weren't eating too much animal foods, and they were definitely not eating salty, and they would do things that would make them sweat, like exercise, being outside, hiking like this, going to a sauna, or they live in a warm place.
I don't want this to be misconstrued by the plant-based or vegan zealots out there. I was plant-based for almost 5 years. There's a lot of issues with the research there. Let me just summarize it here. Healthy user bias. Those who are more willing to do a plant-based or whole food diet where you're minimizing your processed foods, they need to be more health conscious. They need to have other things that are associated with better health outcomes. Because to make that decision in the first place, they're probably more focused on their health than the person who is having steak, but also has cheeseburgers and has Coke and smokes and yada, yada, yada. Surprising about the salt. I think when I was in med school, the thought was shifting from salt is bad to salt is bad if you have high blood pressure, but if you do not have high blood pressure, then it doesn't really matter.
They didn't smoke, they didn't drink much. They usually had a good social support, like loved ones, family members, children, friends, like a way to socialize.
That's one that we very much underappreciate in Western medicine. But when you understand how important the mind-body connection is, having that emotional support and emotional health, it's the lead domino that results in so many other things falling into line.
They would sleep. They would sleep like 8 hours every day, and they weren't stressed out. Or if they had a stressful job or something, they found a way to be mindful or meditate or just be present and release the stress back into the universe. That's what I saw. People
that watch either this channel or Med School Insiders know that I sound like a broken record because I say those 3 pillars, right? Sleep, nutrition, exercise. It matters, it works. It helps not just with your health, but also your performance and your study efficacy and your performance in school and your overall happiness. People don't like to hear it because it's not sexy. It's not this new whatever hack, but the shit works.
They would heal so quickly that I couldn't operate on them. If I was booked like 3 or 4 weeks out, a lot of times people that were doing that, they would heal before I could do the surgery that I thought would fix the problem. And the opposite was true. Patients that, so they smoked like a chimney, they sat on the couch and they ate hot dogs all day, they had no friends, they were super stressed out, they didn't sleep well. Yeah, those patients, I could do a really good surgery, I would get them temporarily better, but 6 months, a year later, the same part of their back would have a recurrent problem, or a different joint of their back would have a similar problem. And I would operate on them and they might get better for 6 months, and yeah, then the same thing would happen. So it's the leaky roof problem. That was my aha moment. Wait, to actually heal, you need to eat a certain way, sleep a lot, not be stressed out, have a good social network, exercise, move your body, stretch. If you do all those things, you heal. And when your body heals, it doesn't just heal a worn out joint in your neck or your back. It heals everything. The skin problem, it heals your digestive tract problem, it heals your hair issues. When your body heals, it heals everything.
A bit of an oversimplification here. You're not going to solve everything in your life with just lifestyle changes and all that. But you got to appreciate the importance, because if you don't have those things, then the outcome you want is so much harder to actually achieve. I feel pretty dialed in with my exercise, my nutrition, my sleep. I'm exercising more than I ever have, and I'm eating very clean, and I slept like 9 hours last night. And has that solved all of my issues? No, I still have inflammatory bowel disease. I still need to take whatever medications. I still am sensitive to spicy food. I still can't eat spicy food all these years later. But I feel so much healthier now. I have so few symptoms because, this is a whole nother story that I've told elsewhere on this channel. The reason that I quit plastic surgery was because a few things, but one of them was understanding that I could not work 20 hours a day between my various businesses and plastic surgery and be healthy. So it kind of sucked that when I was 18, I got diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease, but at the same time, it's a blessing in disguise because it highlighted the importance of health to me at a very early age, much earlier than most people realize, because you feel like a superhuman when you're in your 20s, but not me. It's kind of trite, it's kind of obvious, it's kind of, people roll their eyes, but this stuff is really important, and the sooner you recognize that, the sooner you can benefit from it. Sorry, camera died, it overheated. Let's resume.
That actually became a huge problem. Because most people will say, wait, how is that a problem that you figured out how people are healing? It's a problem because our medical system isn't set up this way.
If you want to know more about how the medical system is set up and the pros and cons and how do you actually get people to focus more on the outcomes, then check out this video on the Med School Insiders channel between value-based care versus fee-for-service. Not a perfect solution, but that's going to at least get you to understand a bit of the pros and cons of the possible solutions out there and how we can move in that direction. And I do think part of it is a cultural shift as well, as I alluded to earlier, where people want that magic pill, that magic procedure, and they don't want to do the hard work themselves.
The way that everything is set up in the whole country, the hospital needs to make money. They need to make money, they need to grow economically. They need to grow economically.
And whether or not they do is also a point of debate, because if you nationalize healthcare, do you really need to? If it's privatized and you have private equity firms investing in it, then obviously there is a very strong incentive for it to be a profitable endeavor, to get a return on that investment.
If you figure out a way to help patients heal, and that way doesn't include a pill or a surgery, well, then the hospital and the doctor are in big trouble, because if you figure out a way to help people heal and you can't charge them for it, well, then you've just worked yourself out of a job.
I don't agree, and that's an oversimplification, because it's not just a matter of you need to do something to get paid. You can start reimbursing more for lifestyle and preventive measures. That's one way of doing it, right? You also are incurring tremendous cost to provide these medications, we talked about Ozempic recently on the channel, the cost of providing that medication. The cost of each of these procedures is very high. This is an oversimplification, and it's not just profit. There is revenue and there's expenses. Even the amount of revenue you allocate for a given procedure. We talked, actually, this video right here on RVUs on the Med School Insider channel that shows you how we as a society, insurance companies, Medicare, pay for various interventions and the 3 types of RVUs and how they combine. It's a really, really great explanation. You can compensate more for preventive measures. That is a very valid solution. It's not just this doom and gloom that he's oversimplifying here.
Example, there's a hospital in a town, and there's an X amount of people with back problems. And the hospital, there's a doctor, we'll just say 100 spine surgeries in a year to fix the people in the community's backs. And the hospital got paid, Dr. Goobie got paid, and it continued. Every year, 100 people needed surgery from Dr. Goobie. Well, the hospital's happy, Dr. Goobie gets paid. Dr. Goobie may not be happy with his life, but he's getting paid and the hospital's getting paid. But if Dr. Goobie figures out, hey, yeah, you know what, this surgery can help some people, but really the best thing that people can do is eat a certain way, exercise, sleep, meditate, be mindful, and not be stressed, hang out with their loved ones and friends, and then their back problems will get better. And if Dr. Goobie actually recommended that to his patients, and they actually did get better, well, it's a big problem for Dr. Goobie's paycheck and the hospital. Because let's say in that town, let's say everybody ate more veggies and fruits, they really watched the salt intake, they did things that made them sweat, like being outside in the summer, exercising, enjoying fresh air and the nature. They slept 8 hours every day and they weren't stressed out. Let's just say everybody who had back problems in that town did that and they got better, they healed. Then nobody needs spine surgery anymore.
No. That's not a 100% effective intervention. You're not gonna go from having 100 people per year needing spine surgery to now 0. Maybe you cut that number down to 60, 50, 40, 30, whatever it is, there's still some. So that's number one, the issue I have with this argument. Number two is you can be the neurosurgeon that doesn't just push surgery. It's like they say, don't ask a barber if you need a haircut, don't ask a surgeon if you need surgery, because they are incentivized with the paycheck to say, yes, you need surgery, even when maybe you don't. But Dr. Goobie can be the surgeon that says, hey, you know what? I'm gonna do things differently. I'm gonna say, first focus on these things. I do not operate on a spine patient unless they've done X, Y, and Z for X period of time. And then we see whether or not surgery is necessary. And let's say nationwide now you have 50%, 30% of the number of people needing spine surgery. Guess what? Supply and demand. You're gonna have fewer people wanting to go into neurosurgery because the neurosurgeon average salary drops from $900,000 a year to $300,000 a year. But you can still pay them and reimburse them for preventive measures. Imagine if your primary care doctor and your spine surgeon were both focusing on preventive measures. Wouldn't that change more people's behavior than what we have right now? This oversimplification, I think, it's sexy, it's catchy, but it's not the truth. And it's doing a disservice to actually having an intelligent and nuanced discussion about the reality. No, if you become that person, you do not completely demolish the healthcare system and ruin all neurosurgeons and whatever. There's a middle ground here. I don't like when people speak in black and white because the truth is almost always in the gray. Speak to the gray.
In fact, they probably don't need a lot of things anymore. And then Dr. Goobie's office is empty and the hospital's operating room is empty, at least for Dr. Goobie surgeries.
You don't go from 100 to 0. There's no, I am doing those things. I'm doing the sleep, I'm doing the stress management, I'm doing the exercise, I'm doing the nutrition, I'm doing the social support, I'm doing the relationships, I'm doing the family, I'm doing the whatever. Is my GI doctor now out of a job? Making America healthier. And if we can really move the needle and fewer people need spine surgery, then there's gonna be more, those neurosurgeons will do more preventive measures, more preventive counseling, non-surgical management, and they'll also do other types of surgery that are required. There's still gonna be trauma. Regardless of what happens with the back pain and how healthy you are, if you get in a car accident and you need spine surgery or brain surgery, who's gonna do it? A neurosurgeon. If you have a tumor, who's gonna do it? A neurosurgeon. If you have scoliosis, who's gonna do it? And I say neurosurgeon, but it can also be an orthopedic surgeon if it's spine stuff, right? No. The reason why I feel myself getting so frustrated by this is because then as a physician, you're now getting the layperson to now distrust medicine, distrust the system, because now you're painting it as black and white. You're essentially making medicine, doctors, the hospitals, the bad guys, and
they're like, yeah, you know, fuck medicine, fuck the doctors, they're so greedy. It's like,
dude, oh my God. Actually, I'm pretty disappointed right now. The reason I can feel myself getting so frustrated by this is that it pits the public against medicine, against physicians, against hospitals. And what we need to do is find a solution and not just pit and point the finger and play the blame game. This is not the truth. By misconstruing things and making the layperson think that this is the truth and that the doctor and the hospital is the enemy, rather than speaking to that gray area, guess what? We need to change reimbursements. We need to change things that align patients' health with the incentives. And that's not the case right now. And what I'm trying to do at Med School Insiders, and if you've watched those videos on like the value-based care as an example, we're trying to educate and talk about the pros and cons so we can have a better system. I don't think this moves the needle in a helpful direction really at all. At least not in the discussion of how we can improve healthcare. I do think that this at least can move the needle with regards to people making better choices and understanding that, yeah, guess what? It's not just a matter of procedures and pills. It's a matter of lifestyle interventions and preventive stuff doing the majority of it. And this is why when you look at people who are focused on longevity, on living better, longer, healthier lives, they focus on the main killers. Cardiovascular disease, for Americans at least, cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disease, metabolic disease, right? And cancer. And you see that a lot of the focus is on preventive measures. And that's great. And we should push for more of that. That's why I talk about that a lot on my channel. You have people like Peter Attia, who also quit, he actually quit his general surgery residency, and now he focuses more on this longevity. And we're doing a book summary on his book, Outlive, giving you actionable advice, because that is the solution for a lot of Americans. So I'm glad that we're highlighting the importance of this lifestyle change for patients. But we need to talk about medicine, the structure, healthcare as a whole, in a more nuanced and intelligent way.
Now, I'm not saying that that's exactly what happened, because not everyone's going to do all those things that I talked about.
But even if they did, it's not 100% efficacy. If you give that to the cancer patients that neurosurgeons work on, glioblastoma, right? Or whatever spine tumors, you're going to have a much lower efficacy rate there as well.
But I had a lot of patients that did do those things, and They got better. I never had to operate on them, and they were very happy that they never had to be operated on. And they got better. The pain went away.
And I will say that a lot of people who are getting spine surgery, a lot of the time it's back pain, which can be more easily remedied with various exercises and physical therapy and mobility and strength training, etc. I had very bad lower back pain myself, which was caused by a injury from deadlifting when I was in college. I think I was 20 years old. But I refused to get back surgery, and I did a lot of PT, I did a lot of stretching. I stretched every single morning for literally years on end and tried different exercises, and I'm now at a point where I don't have any back pain. And while back pain may be addressable with these more conservative measures, a lot of conditions aren't.
Really felt like the focus of medicine wasn't in the right place. It wasn't in healing, it was in making money from surgeries and pills and images, whatever you can make money from.
And that is part of the issue with the structure right now. But again, the nuance, the gray area. Like, fee for service is not a good model because it just rewards the physician and the hospital for doing more things, more interventions. It doesn't reward the outcome. It rewards the input, what you are doing. If you actually focus on the outcome, value-based care, then you will find that by focusing on preventive measures, you can actually drastically reduce healthcare costs and expenditures in the long term, because the person who is living healthier right now, in 20 years, hopefully I don't have cardiovascular disease because I exercise a shit ton, I eat clean, and I'm also on statins and ezetimibe right now, right? Whereas the fee-for-service model is like, you don't really need these statins and this ezetimibe right now because, the cost right now is gonna cost us $20 a month to give you these meds, and you're not really high enough risk. But the better way of looking at it is, how can I reduce my risk long-term to have these catastrophic illnesses that are gonna ruin my life and also cost the healthcare system a lot of money?
But the incentives are not right in the whole system, this whole country's medical system, probably not just this country, but most countries.
Yeah, wherever you have a fee-for-service model, this is an issue with the incentive structure.
Prevention is about therapies. Once I figured out this problem, or figured out what was going on, it was a huge problem for me ethically. I was doing surgeries that I knew weren't fixing the underlying problem. They may be fixing the drywall and taking out the insulation and paint on the wall, but it wasn't fixing the leaky roof.
Now, I wonder what actually prevented him from going to another area within neurosurgery. Because again, like I said, we know spine surgery, even outside of neurosurgery. I'm not a neurosurgeon, but a lot of people in medicine know that spine surgery has these poor outcomes. You're way better off trying these conservative measures, et cetera, et cetera. But why not focus on something else within neurosurgery, like peripheral nerve? One of the first cases I saw that was a joint neuroplastics case was peripheral nerve. I thought it was super cool, super fascinating, super science fiction. I'll talk about that more in some other videos. Or what about neurotrauma or endovascular or brain tumor, right? Brain tumor is one of those things where, guess what? Once you have brain cancer, your lifestyle interventions are not going to reverse that. He likely wouldn't have the same ethical hangups there, right? So I'm curious why he didn't consider pivoting in that way.
Well, I'm the only paycheck. I need to keep working. I need to keep going to this job that I don't believe in anymore. And that tore me apart. I gained 40 pounds. I was really sad. I was really angry, frustrated, didn't have hope. I thought I was stuck. I was stuck.
Oftentimes we'll find that burnout is so readily accelerated by that feeling of being trapped when you lose autonomy. So when he felt like he wasn't choosing to go to work because he wanted to and because he enjoyed his job and he was making a meaningful impact, and he felt that what he was doing wasn't actually helping people, wasn't worthwhile, but he had to go because of the paycheck. That's just a recipe for disaster.
Year before last, I was like, I don't know how I can do this for the rest of my life. Most surgeons, they keep operating till they're 60, and at that time I was 38. I was like, I don't know how I can operate doing this, doing surgeries that I don't believe in. Even though I can do them very well, and I can help some people out. I helped out a number of people, but it was a moral dilemma or moral injury. I think there's the term moral injury. For those who haven't heard that term, it's a nuanced term that's a little bit different than burnout. I suggest you searching burnout versus moral injury. I saw Z-Dog MD talking about it a lot a few years back. it tore me up inside. And I knew that if I kept going back to that job every day for another 20 years, I would die before 20 years. My body and mind and soul, they would have just broken down, and I don't think I would have made it. I wouldn't have made it to 60. So I knew that something had to change, but I was stuck. I was the breadwinner. So, I talked to my wife and I said, well, would it be okay if I just work part-time? Maybe I'll cover the ER neurosurgery job or do something else, something that makes me feel good, like being out here, being out in nature. My wife, I said earlier that she's amazing. She said, I see what you're going through. I've lived with you through it. You should just quit. And I said, what? How can I quit? You're not working yet. She was going to school for a second career, and she said, well, we'll be okay. We saved up some money. It's not enough to retire, but something to live off of for a few years. Why don't you just quit? And I thought about it really hard.
This is great. So the average neurosurgeon is making like 800 or 900K per year in the US. So again, some people more than that, some people less than that. It's a lot of money. And if you are intelligent and financially disciplined and you don't live this large lifestyle where you're burning through most of that, but you live off of 100K per year, which is still a pretty good lifestyle, 100K, and you invest the rest, and again, you're paying taxes and whatever other expenses, but you invest several $100,000s every year after just 9 years of being a neurosurgeon, you're gonna have enough where you're not set for life necessarily. It depends on your burn rate, how much you're spending per year, but you're pretty comfortable, and now you have the flexibility to say, hey, I want to quit this job and go do something else. I'm no longer aligned with this job. It no longer brings me the satisfaction. It's actually detracting from my life. It's pulling me down in a lot of ways. And I like that he and his wife seem to be pretty financially disciplined to allow him to be in that position. So kudos.
Couldn't keep going back, but I didn't know what I was gonna do instead for work. But I knew that I would die if I kept going back. So with my wife's support, I went to my job and I said, hey, I can't do this anymore. I will do it for another, I think it was 9 months at that time. I'll do it for another 9 months until you can find someone to replace me so that that hospital still have a spine surgeon.
I'm still really curious why he didn't want to try out doing ED stuff, where you're dealing with more trauma, as an example, versus just chronic spine issues. And those chronic spine issues, he has a lot of problems with, a lot of hangups with that, understandably so. Maybe he did a spine fellowship. He didn't mention that. He said he just did the 6 years of residency. But maybe if he did a spine fellowship, that made him feel he had to keep doing that. But then he was talking about doing call for the ED. So something that I have a couple questions there.
And I quit. Nobody understood why I quit. So I would tell them, oh yeah, I was burnt out, or yeah, it's just too stressful. I just want to take a break, like that. I mean, they're all true, but they weren't the full picture. And at first I was really embarrassed to say that I'm quitting and that I have no plan of what to do afterwards. That was embarrassing too. But after some time had passed and a lot of people had asked me that question, and I told a lot of people I have no idea what I'm gonna do afterwards. It actually felt good. It feels good to not have a plan.
Yes.
It's freeing. Because I don't have a plan, I don't have to be anywhere.
It's a blank canvas. And when I quit plastic surgery, it wasn't not having a plan, because I did have a plan, and I had the businesses that were already started, and I wanted to expand them and grow them and dedicate more time to them. But you still feel that tabula rasa, blank slate. You can do anything at this point. You don't have to be anywhere. You don't have to clock in, clock out. You can work from home. You can travel. You can work 20 hours a day if you want. You can work 0 hours a day if you want.
It's actually kind of a weird feeling, because throughout my life, throughout most of our lives, we always have some external structure or something that's more or less molding our life. And as of today, I don't have that anymore. The future is just this blank canvas. And now I don't have a definite job. I don't have any deadlines in the future. This is so weird. This is so crazy.
And it's kind of wild. And it took me a few years, not just one, not just two, but maybe even 3 years for it to start to feel normal that any day when I wake up, I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to clock in, I don't have to work. Like I could if I wanted to, as in I could not do anything if I wanted to. Or if I'm feeling sick, like right now I have a bit of a cough, I slept 11 hours last night and I had a meeting at 10, but I slept in until 9. It's kind of weird having that level of freedom and autonomy because we are conditioned in our modern society to always need to be somewhere, always need to be doing something, to feel kind of like a cog in this machine. And then when you're removed from that, it's a little bit disorienting.
I don't have to do something at a certain time.
Yeah, at a certain time, right?
Someone asked me, oh, what's your plan? And I said, I don't know. And I felt good about it. And I could tell they felt embarrassed for me. They felt uncomfortable, whereas I was feeling uncomfortable initially saying that. But yeah, over time.
And then as you get older, you learn to give fewer fucks what people think.
I just accept it. Like, I know I can't do neurosurgery anymore, and I don't have a plan, and I'm quitting, and I won't have a paycheck. I got some money saved up, and I can live off of that for a while, but I've got to work again at some point. I can't retire. But yeah, no, I need to do this. I knew I needed to do this, and I did it.
You get so much judgment from people in medicine because medicine is such a conservative, risk-averse career. So when you tell people in that field, your coworkers, your friends, you will get some judgment. But the real friends, they'll be happy for you, they'll support you, they won't care. And the people who don't know you, like when I quit, they said, oh, you quit plastic surgery to become a YouTuber and try to shame me. And I'm just like, hey man, I'm living my truth, I'm living my dream. I don't consider myself a YouTuber, at least not just a YouTuber. I consider myself an entrepreneur, and this makes sense to me. And I like my new life. It's actually pretty great. I actually have more of an impact. And people can't wrap their heads around that. They have such fixed opinions and ways of seeing things that they can't even fathom that someone could find their work in medical education to be more meaningful and actually have a greater impact than plastic surgery, because plastic surgery to them is this pedestal, is this thing where no, you're doing surgery and helping up each patient, blah, blah, blah. Hey man, we can have different ways of viewing the world. That's okay. And similarly, you don't have to give any weight to the opinions of those people that are just trying to bring you down and are not adding value to your life.
So I think that's what most people call a midlife crisis, is what I would say was those 9 years I was really unhappy. I knew something was wrong, and I knew I couldn't live like that, but I felt stuck. Felt stuck in that situation. Felt like I couldn't escape it. That was a crisis. Now that I've left, I haven't been this happy in my whole life. It does not feel like a crisis right now. I mean, maybe financially it might be a crisis at some point, but I've never been this happy before.
Hell yeah, man.
Ever.
Happy for him. Still have the questions about why not try other areas of neurosurgery that don't give you the hangups. That's still unanswered to me, but happy for him. Happy for him being happy.
So what I did when I quit is I just walked a lot outside because I had gained 40 pounds, like I said earlier, and I ate healthy. I slept a lot because a neurosurgeon, they don't sleep very well because they keep getting called about emergencies.
One of the most, if not the most challenging lifestyle of all medical specialties, and we talk about all the lifestyles of different medical specialties on the Medical Insiders channel. We have a few videos on that.
And I walked, and I spent time outside, I spent time with my dog. I did the things that I wanted to do, which is be out here. My dog, she's Doobie, she's 7 years old, and for the majority of her life, she unfortunately had a very boring life because I was so busy, my wife was busy, and we'd take her out for a walk every day for half an hour to an hour, and then she would just lay at home the rest of the day, and it made me sad. It made me sad that that's her life, or that was her life. And so I wanted to spend time with her and spend time with her outside because she loves being outside. And so it first started out, I want to lose weight, get back to a healthier weight. I want to help my dog live a full life, where.
One thing I'm seeing a lot amongst surgeons, there's this pendulum where surgery demands so much of you from your lifestyle. You sacrifice a lot. And That's like in your residency and soon after as a young attending. And I know a few people now in real life, and now seeing GoobieAndDoobie here, that swing the other way, where they get really into mindfulness. So if you look at the other videos on his channel, a lot of it's like mindfulness and meditation, and they are swinging in this other direction really hard. And it's something that I've done too, especially back when I was in training. I had like my morning routine and surgery residency. I would do my 10-minute meditation and try to manage all the craziness. And I've even done that in the last few years since leaving. But what I'm trying to get at here is that because so many surgeons live this extreme lifestyle that doesn't allow you much time for other things. You don't sleep enough, you don't have time for your loved ones, you don't have time for your hobbies, you don't have time for your pets, right? That they kind of burn out and swing hard the other way. And what I'm trying to find is this balance, which for everyone is different. But for me, I want to sleep a lot. I want to sleep 7, 8, 9 hours a night. I want to exercise on my bike 6 days a week. I want to lift 4 times a week. I want to hang out with my girlfriend. I want to see my friends. And there's only 24 hours in a day. And I think when people are looking at careers, they focus too much on the bottom line, how many dollars they take home at the end of the year. And they make career decisions based on that. Not necessarily in medicine, or just in medicine, I should say, because you do see that the most competitive specialties, plastic surgery, ENT, and whatever, I think number 3 is like maybe ortho. Neurosurgery is also like number 4, number 5, something like that. These top 5 specialties all make the most money in medicine. And they also happen to be the most competitive. So you do see people choosing things that will put more dollar bills in their pocket. But what people don't focus on enough is the cost of doing so. Chris Williamson, this podcaster who I love his show, Modern Wisdom, he talks about hidden and observable metrics. So the observable metric being money that we focus on. We observe that, we can easily measure it, so we focus too much and prioritize that too much. And the hidden metrics are the things like the sleep, the happiness, the emotional costs, the things that matter just as much, if not more, but because they're not as easy to measure, we don't focus on them. And more people would be so much happier if they didn't just focus on that bottom line, on prestige, on money, and if they focused on having that balanced life where I do enjoy working hard right now. I do have ambitions and aspirations, and I find meaning from my work. But I also like to do these other things. I like racing my car. I do car reviews on the side for fun, because even though I lose money on every single video, because why not? I love that stuff. I take my car to the racetrack. I cycle. I do these things because I like to do them, and I make less money as a result. I would make more money if I took all that time and just put it into my work, my businesses, but I would burn out a lot faster. I would be less happy. My life, this is my life. There is no, let me work hard and then I enjoy life later. I need to enjoy it now. So why can't I enjoy the ride and work hard, but not 100%, but work like 90% or 80%? That's the hard part, that there isn't an easy answer to it, and for everyone it's different, but it's kind of based on your feeling, and it takes a lot of intentionality to live that way. It's hard. I'm not perfect at it. There's days where I feel like I could do things a lot better. But there's also days, I think in the last couple of years, where I feel stoked that I'm getting closer to that point.
Yeah, I quit. I had no plan. But when you let go of something that you're holding too tightly, even though it's hurting you, and you let go of it, then you're able to pick up something else that hopefully is better for you. I wanted to spend time outside. I wanted to help my dog live a full life by being outside with me. And then I wanted to record those moments so that if I live longer than Doobie, I will have those memories and I can look back at them and appreciate the time that I have with my dog. That's how this channel got started. And being outside with her, I started taking video of these pleasant nature scenes. I found them very therapeutic for myself. I am able to be outside, be healthier. My dog is able to live a fuller life, and I've figured out a way that I can help relieve people's suffering by sharing nature scenes with them. It's not a surgery, but it definitely works to at least...
Isn't that beautiful? Full circle.
One of those several things that help people heal, which is to relieve stress.
One of the most selfish things you can do is try to help others, because you will feel better about yourself, about your life. It will bring you happiness to serve others. As Dr. Goobie here is saying, relieve suffering through sharing these nature sounds. It's helped him, and he wants to help other people too. Awesome stuff. My friends, let me know what you think. Do you agree or disagree? Leave a comment down below. Much love. See you in that next one.